Okay, we're live. Absolutely. Thank you, Kate. Hello, Aleyda. Hello, everybody who's watching. I'm really excited today to be selfish and have the opportunity to spend 60 minutes asking Aleyda all about. Let me come back into focus. Am I here? Anyway, yeah, there we go. I'm back. To spend 60 minutes talking to Aleyda about her background as, well, I don't know how to encapsulate it, but, international SEO consultant, speaker, someone who has done many things outside of the world of SEO. As I discovered yesterday, some things that I was unable to find on Google about her sales background that we're going to come to in a little while. I'm looking forward to talking to Aleyda, hearing about her journey, which begins in Nicaragua. For those of you who are, here we go. Hey, Scott, how you doing? So brilliant.
Hello.
For all of those people who are just joining us right now, I'll give, in fact, the first 5 minutes to just say hello. Let us know where you're from. Let us know what you do.
Nitin.
Hey, Nitin.
All over the world. That is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So guys, in fact, we're going to take the next couple of minutes. We've got, it's 4:02 local time here in London, at least. What time is it for you, Aleyda? Is it 5:02?
For me, it's 5, indeed, here in Spain.
Okay, brilliant. So we'll take the next couple of minutes, everybody, to let us know
Mongolia, that is amazing. Yeah. Someone from Mongolia.
Yeah. Hey, Hans, how you doing, brother? Let us know where you're from. Let us know what you do. Let us know what questions that you've got for Aleyda. This is...
I am scared. I am scared now.
Guys, so this is going to be less about in-depth SEO questions and more about... This is your opportunity to have free range to ask Aleyda whatever you would like that relates to her personal and professional background. Of course, we give Aleyda discretion to politely decline to answer some questions and to gracefully accept others. But brilliant. I'm really excited. It looks like we've got more people coming in. Hello, David from London. Hello, Frequency.io. I'd love to know your real name. If that's your real name, I'll be even more impressed, in fact.
Well, you know how Elon Musk named his kid or her kid or whatever? Like, there are weird names nowadays. So
yeah, that's true. It's very true. Hey, Harsh. Hello. Hey, is that Nicole maybe or Nicola from? I think you're from South Carolina. Hey, Faisal from Toronto. Let us know, guys, what you do in life and work, and let us know where you're from. If you can also include the chaps that are coming in from India. India's a big place. It's too big a place for you to just say that you're from India.
Indeed, I had the chance actually to go to India in December. Last year was one of my last trips because before the craziness started this year, thankfully. So it was, I make the most out of it, and it was a beautiful place. Beautiful.
Yeah. Place. Okay. All right. Brilliant. So for those of you who are from India, let us know where you're from, because we'll ask her later if she's been there. We've got someone who's just joined from Israel. I would love to know what your name or how I pronounce it in English is, because I can't, I'm afraid, pronounce it, but I'd love to know. Hello. Oh, Hayden, let's listen. Looking forward to watching the rest of the webinar. And more, so Hayden, marketing consultant from London. We've got, who else have we got in here? We're going to give it, we're at 3. If any of you guys can see the ticker, it's on my, at least, top left-hand side. We're 3 minutes 53. I don't know if you guys can see it into being live. We're going to give it 1 more minute. And then we're going to turn to asking Aleyda some lovely questions. So guys, for the final time, if you're joining, let us know where you're from. Let us know what you do. Let us know what questions you've got for Aleyda. And I'm just looking forward to hearing all about her journey. Millie, there you go. So we've got the answer as to his name in English. Hey, Kat. Yeah, Russia. Where in Russia? Let us know. RM. Where in the UK, my friend? We've got Tanya from India. Whereabouts are you guys tuning in from? It's a big old place. And Aleyda, I want to know that answer very quickly. Yeah. Where in India were you in? You said December, did you say, or January?
Yeah, actually, I just went to Bangalore, but I was like so impressed of, how big everything was.
Yeah.
The craziness going on, even at night. I landed at 3 a.m. or something like that, very crazy, 4 a.m. And I mean, the huge streets. and they were crowded at that time. It's like, what the heck? It's crazy. And the food, of course. I mean, I'm a foodie, and oh my God, delicious and hot. Also Indian food. I love it. I could be eating that every single day. Not good for my weight, unfortunately, but yeah, oh my God.
It's okay. I miss that. I am naturally, being the man that I am, a little bit biased, that I'd have to agree with you and say that there's a lot of good food that does come out of India. So no, it sounds like it was a really good trip. So guys, welcome. We're gonna kick off. And guys, so I would love, and I'm gonna give it maybe just 10 seconds. I'd love for you to guess where Aleyda was actually born, because I'm curious as to where you think in the world she's born. I'm gonna give you a clue right now. She is currently in Spain. I'm not gonna say where, but she wasn't born there. And as I was discussing with her and Anton on a call yesterday, I was pleasantly surprised. She is officially the first, and who knows, maybe the last SEO that I will meet who is born in this country.
Hopefully not the last, right? I hope many more than come, but
that's true. That's true.
But you know what? Realistically, there are more now here in Spain. However, I remember back in the day here when I came to Spain to study, right? Like there were many people who I met, I was introduced to, and they were like, "Oh, you're the first person from this country that I have ever met for the first time." So it's very exciting to give a good impression.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we've got you know what? Touch wood. Please. I think you're doing not a bad job at all. So we've had an answer flash up on the screen. Yes. We've got some so guys, that is in fact it begins with N. Logan, as well as Marco, as well as Alicia guessed it. It's Nicaragua. I that is correct, isn't it? Christ, yeah. I hope that, yeah, brilliant. So look, I'd love, Aleyda, for the benefit of the audience, I think that there's a lot of people that know you as the woman you are today, and the many awards and recognition that you gain within the SEO world. But let's kind of go back a step, and I'd love to hear briefly about your kind of beginnings in Nicaragua and what life was like for you a little bit, just kind of growing up. What was it like? How was it in Nicaragua?
Yeah, it was very different. And I will say that even today, if I were born right now, right, in Nicaragua, or even a few years later than I did in Nicaragua, because I was born in the 80s. And the issue during the 80s is in Nicaragua is because it was a country that was at war. It was there was a blockage from the US. It was like typical Iran-Contra type of thing with type of military. I never saw it. I have to say, I have to be also honest. I never saw anything happening myself at the city. It's crazy, but when I was a kid, it felt safe. I wasn't that aware because you are a kid, 7 years old. Who knows, right? About that. Because everything happened like in the mountains, like far abroad in the countryside of Nicaragua, in the north, near Honduras, right?
Okay.
But yes, realistically, it was a very strange moment for anybody who were born there, because if you were a male and were 16, you had to go to war. You were taken to the military, and then you had to go to literally to take care of the country, right? So yes, it was I think it was like very different times, of course, than the one right now. But I also have to say though, and this is quite funny, because if you ask me right now, right, what do you think of you who were born at that point? I was like, poor kid, she will have many challenges also, because Nicaragua is like a very small country, and besides that context, right, it's also a very chauvinist country. It's not very open-minded.
What is the population of Nicaragua?
I think it's 6 million people last time I checked, right? So I mean, it's beautiful from an environment perspective. Beautiful beaches in the Pacific and Caribbean side, and it is called the land of lakes and volcanoes because there are huge
Wow.
lakes. There is a huge lake that has 365 little island inside the lakes, and there is one of those lakes, Isla de Ometepe is called, that has 2 volcanoes in it. So it's a surreal place from a nature perspective. It's beautiful. It's tropical, right? But yes, I was born unfortunately in a very weird time, and of course because of the blockage, for example, we didn't have McDonald's, this type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Communist countries lived also in Eastern Europe too, right? And this type of thing until I was like 10 years old or so, where democracy came back to the country, etc. Free elections, whatever. So it was like another another type of change too for me. But yes, it was a very strange time, I guess. Yeah.
And was the intention always to? I mean, I don't even know if that was the intention, to be honest with you. But what was the plan, or is it? I mean, we spoke yesterday, and one of the things that's quite interesting was that when we were talking, you, I, and Anton about were you rich, were you poor, and you were talking. I was in a pretty much non-existent like middle class.
Because that is the problem usually in countries, certain countries in Latin America, right? Like there's like a 1% that's very rich, a lot of people who have nothing literally, and there's no middle class. The more middle class there is, in general, that much better society it is, right? Unfortunately, in Nicaragua there wasn't much, but I was thankful enough part of that middle class. So this is the thing, right? At that time, for me, I felt like rather privileged and very happy with my life because, I was able to get really good education. I went to a private school. I went to the French school. I learned a second language. Then I had everything that I needed. Like, indeed, I have. Even, I was raised by my grandmother because my mom and my dad divorced when I was very, very little. So even like that, with this very unstructured type of not usual type of reality when growing up, I felt super, super lucky because indeed you could see actually on street working or asking for money or food, things like that. So it puts everything in perspective. I believe. And this is something that even today, right now, when thankfully I have done very well in life from a professional perspective and from an economical standpoint too. But I am very aware of that.
Kept you humble, huh?
Everything into perspective for sure. Yes.
Yeah. No, absolutely, and I think that what for me that I find really fascinating in your case is one, I really love the openness about talking about, relatively speaking, maybe I had some level of privilege, but that balance that it's given you, I think has allowed, it sounds like it's really fostered an environment where you have some conditions to get a great education, but also remain respectful and to have the kind of humility of understanding that this is the roots of my country, and I can only imagine how that. I mean, how has that, do you think, been critical to your professional development? Like, how would you say that has a bearing upon where you are today, looking back upon it?
A lot of influence, because I knew very early in my life that I needed to work very hard, right? I needed to be a really good student. If I really wanted to have a good job, that were like not that many necessarily in Nicaragua, right? I really need to study hard. I really needed to have great grades. I really need to push myself and be really, really good, right? In order to get good opportunities. So yes, that has always been something that I think that has influenced a lot of my work for sure, and the way that how I approach things, right? I try to give it all and have a high work type of ethics.
I mean, that's just obvious from seeing your output and the amount of stuff that you've done. I thought that I knew you kind of well from the SEO circuit and just from then looking you up, but then ahead of this interview I dug even further and I was like, holy cow, there's all this other stuff that you've done. So what I really want to ask about, and we've got some questions in the audience, guys. I am going to be asking Aleyda to answer these questions. So please keep them coming, and I'm going to go through them What I'd love to understand is how then did you wind up? Everyone knows you as, you know, for your name within the SEO community, but that's not where you started life. So I kind of want to understand. Tell us a little bit about Aleyda before she even touched Google Search Console or Google Analytics.
Yes, indeed. Well, this is the thing. I had a previous professional life before SEO, right?
Yeah.
I studied systems engineering in Nicaragua, still in my country, right? And when I was in the first year of the university, there was this free HTML course given to all students, right? And I felt super bad because I was actually taking a little bit more advanced math class than my other classmates. That was at the same time than the course. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to take the course, and I felt so bad. Like I felt that I was already like being left out, right? And I wanted to actually have to learn how to build websites. And so what I started to do is I went to the teacher who was giving the course, and I asked for the documentation, and I started doing it by myself. And I rather found that at that point, at least, it was rather logical, right? You start like you open the HTML tag, you had the head, you had the body. I was like, so it was so logical for me. So I started doing it, and then this is very funny. When that course finished, they did this final type of competition with everybody who had attended the course to see who could build the best website.
And this wasn't even your main thing. It was something you asked.
Yes. This is something like that you could take like alternative, like free thing. Pretty much all my like all the students like in the first year doing systems engineering, they were doing it at the same time. So anyway, so I actually say, okay, I'm not taking the course, but can I participate in the competition? And I did, and I won it. But I have to say something that I know that I didn't want necessarily because my HTML was the cleanest. Like I use frames and everything. I mean, like this was in dynamic still, right?
Yeah.
But it's because I did it from a topic that, of course, it engaged the audience and the people who voted. Like I was about marine turtles and how marine turtles needed to be taken care of in Nicaragua, because there are marine turtles that go every year to Nicaragua to put the eggs there, and you need to take care of a lot of restaurants and people. They eat it, right? And so there was a lot of movement at that point. So I, as a good marketer, that I never ever knew that I was still at that point, I piggyback on a trending topic that will have an emotional connection with the judges.
I
ended up winning. I think that came to that. So this is the thing. So after that, it was pure coincidence. I was approached by someone who was studying with me, and he told me, "Look, Aleyda, he has he has a family member who own an ISP, a service provider in Nicaragua, and these were the type of companies in Nicaragua that at the time provided web design services to their clients, right? So and he told me, look, they are looking for a new web designer to help them to build websites to their clients. Are you interested to take that job? So I started as a web designer working part-time there. And this is how I started in the web world. But yes, before doing SEO, I was a web designer. At some point, I also was a support person, like IT support. I installed 100 computers and I migrated 100 computers from Windows 95 to Windows 2000. And I migrated them to Active Directory at that point. I was a person. I also was a IT salesperson at a company, and I sold servers and routers and switches.
So this is the part that really blows my mind, because it's what for me I find fascinating hearing about this journey is you coming from a systems engineering background, given the technical knowledge that you bring to your work today, and a lot of the speeches that you've done, like I can kind of get that, and the energy. I call it a bias, but you meet a lot of Latin people, and they're just amazing. Amazing people in terms of the energy and the way they communicate. My partner's Italian, so I see that. The sales thing. this is just really, really interesting for me. Now I have visions of you being in a boardroom and or being on the phone. So talk us through it a little bit more.
This is also very funny, right? And this all happened because there was a recruiting process that happened at my university already when I was in my 4th year or whatever. And I wanted a little bit of a change, right? After I did a little bit of web designing at the beginning, I tried IT support because I wanted something more technical and related to what I did. Type of systems, servers, things like that. And at some point I was just tired because also, you know, as a good IT person, sometimes I needed to work during the weekends, during night shifts, high availability with clients, this type of thing. So I ended up realizing that the salespeople who sold the servers that I took care of later on, they made a lot of money. Like a lot of money, right? So there was this crazy opportunity that it was like my best friend had a boyfriend or something like that who had a friend who worked at GBM that was like the representative of IBM in the Central American region, and they were looking for this. What happens in small countries in Nicaragua? You know someone who knows someone. So they refer us, the two of us, to because they had an open position. They were looking for a salesperson who was technical, right? And they could communicate with IT managers and sell those type of products, right? Like technical products, enterprise level type of products. So they ended up hiring me. And this is how I became a salesperson. And I have to say something, right? I love the fact that I could communicate and go from company to company, because also it was like I was a salesperson to big companies, right? So I didn't have to do like cold calls or anything like that, because also the company that I was selling with was very well known in the country, etc. Right? So I had all that advantage. But you know what? I had to participate at some point in public tenders. The whole process to sell and document the whole thing. Oh my God, it was draining. And my boss at the time, you know, he was. I think that he was like the first type of boss with some sort of leadership that I had, and he could see that and say, you know, Aleyda, you're you know, you can see that you have really good hard work type of ethics, you can say that you don't enjoy it, and it was true. I wasn't enjoying it. It was very draining, and at the end of the month it was like you either made the sale and you reach your sales goals, or you didn't. The work that you had put behind that was completely overlooked, and I didn't feel that I was building something, right? I have to say, I have to be very, very thankful to that job, because thanks to that job I bought my first completely new car at the time. So high
five.
I got money to start traveling a little bit, this type of thing. So that helped a lot. But then at that point, after having that type of experience, I got a call back to a former friend who had worked with me as a web developer when I was still web designing, right? And he told me, look, Aleyda, here in La Prensa, which is the biggest newspaper in Nicaragua, they are looking for a new web designer, front-end web developer. Are you interested? Because I heard that you were not happy as a salesperson. Do you want to go back to this work?
Word really gets around in Nicaragua, doesn't it? Bloody hell! I'm hearing constantly that, you know, someone told me this. I heard.
Well, this is the thing. It's a very small country, so you need to realize that Managua, like the capital city, population is 1 million, and literally and then you need to realize again how everything is organized, structured, and this is a funny thing. I went to school with people who then ended up meeting all the people in university, and then we realized we all know each other. This type of each other. Right? It's very small, it's like a town. So So I went back to the front end development design world, and I realized that was my work, because I love working with web design, the creativity, the creative side of it, and also a little bit the technical side of it, front end type of development. So I loved it until I realized that, oh my God, how do I bring traffic to this, to the websites that I built? And my bosses at the time started to ask me, like, can we do something to bring more traffic? How do we convert it better? How, like, all these more marketing related type of questions. So at the time, what I did is I started to look for courses, online marketing courses, e-commerce courses. And I realized that there was this master in the University of Salamanca that was offered, that was supposed to be an e-commerce master. Then I realized that, it was not that much about real e-commerce from a marketing perspective, but more from a development one. But anyway, I took it. I took the first year when I was still working there in Nicaragua. And then the second year I came to Spain, to Salamanca, to study.
You were taking that because I was looking at that. That was the University of Salamanca. That was in 2000. So you did the first year whilst you were living in Nicaragua?
Yes.
So you did it all remotely?
2006, indeed. Yeah. And then I came to Spain in 2007.
And you're still in Spain right now, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, for a year I lived in Brussels for a job that I had like 2013, 14 or something like that. Yes, when I realized that in the place, and I could be living literally anywhere at this point because I work remotely, right, with clients, and I work also the Orienti team, my SEO consultancy team. We are all spread out, also remote, so I could literally be living anywhere in the world. But I am for a while. I lived in Madrid also, and I really enjoy it. But then after a while, I moved to the north of Spain, to Santander, mainly because my husband's family is from the region, not from the city, but from the region. And so we used to come often anyway, and I loved it. There's a beach. I have like a beach like a kilometer from here. You have the mountains. It's very nature oriented. And since I can work from anywhere, and literally, usually
just joined
travel and
said you live. He just said you live on the plane, so I was just thinking.
Usually, not right now, of course. Of course,
wow. I mean, it really gives some proper context as to the building blocks from which you've made transition, migration. I'm not sure what the correct term is, but certainly a shift into the world of SEO and the space that you've come from. I wanna for the next 10 minutes, I want to take some time to split it up into two sections. So for the next 5 minutes, I would love to start taking some of the questions from the audience. They've asked me a couple of times. So I want to spend 5 minutes running through the questions that the audience have got. And then I've got some other questions that I would love to ask you. So Gayatri, to answer your question, guys, if you've got questions to ask, please do put them in now. And let me just go from the top and have a look. So Scott Chambliss, you of course ask, is there anything more you want to add, Aleyda, about how you got into the field of search? Because it does seem to be quite, maybe less so now, maybe less so because SEO as an industry is literally doing that. Especially, I think now that COVID has happened, we're going to see a true, perhaps, explosion where people recognize it as a career that you can take outside of university. So I wonder, were you aware that, when did you first become aware of SEO as being something that could offer a career for you? When did you have that moment do you know what I mean?
Yes, indeed. So it all happened when I was in Salamanca already. Like doing my master, and then realizing that I wasn't actually learning what I intended to be learning anyway. But I started to look for a job, right? I wanted to make money. Also support myself. I didn't have that money, much money at the time, unfortunately. So I was like, a good side job that also was in the field, right? So I started to look for web development, front-end web development, web designing, whatever. And then I realized that I was actually very lucky because there are a lot of Spanish schools in Salamanca, because this is the place where foreigners go to learn Spanish in Spain, very usually. Anyway, so there are also a few online marketing agencies in Salamanca because of this, because they offer the optimization type of services to this type of companies to attract international students, right? And this was pretty straightforward with SEO, still today, but even at the time, right? So I ended up applying and looking, like literally the ad for a job that said something like, we're looking for a content, like web content manager to help to maintain, to keep updated a network of websites and to monetize those websites and optimize those websites, whatever that was for me, right? In my mind, it's like, what? Like, anyway, so I went to the interview, and at the time I met who will become my boss, who's René de Jong, who's like a Dutch entrepreneur, but who lived here in Spain. And he literally gave me my first position related to online marketing. So I was in charge to develop everything for those websites, right? Like the content, the monetization, the optimization to attract traffic. So at the online marketing agency, they also had SEO clients. So we got trained by the SEO who was at the time at the agency. And this is how I learned SEO. And this is the thing, when the person who was doing SEO at the time moved on to another company, they open like a new role and say, hey, who wants to become or focus more on SEO? And I was like, oh, this is me, right? Because I actually realized that I loved that really much, because it actually had this overlay of things that I actually love to do, like the technical side, the marketing side, the content side, the communication side, monetization, everything. So I realized that, oh, this is something that I really want to focus on. I would love to have a position and doing much more on that. And I ended up working there for 4.5 years. And I became at some point like the SEO head of SEO person of the agency, etc., and allowed me to focus much more on SEO. And this is why I started doing a lot of international SEO at the time, because a lot of the clients that we had, they were a lot of education and travel sector companies that look to attract people to their websites from other countries in other languages, right? So that is how it was so natural for me to start doing that at the time.
Oh, wow. Okay, fantastic. So it does sound really, really as if, you know, SEO provided a perfect blend for the skills as well as the interest that you had. And given, as you said, with the international element, the travel clients, especially given your background, it must have been a really, really, really good fit. So let's keep going on with the other questions that we've got here. Brilliant, Kate. Thank you. You've I've just seen you put some of the other questions onto the other side. So let's so for those of you who are wondering, we're not going to be asking Aleyda technical SEO questions or about specifically how to rank on Google. I am using this opportunity to find out as much as we can about her journey. And what I think is a fantastic question is, someone wants to ask about your book. So Aleyda is asking, how did you decide to write a book? And talk us through that journey a little bit, the process of actually publishing something as an SEO expert.
Yes, actually, it came like in a very natural, organic way for me. I got in touch by a publisher. I was gotten in touch by a publisher here in Spain that focuses a lot on digital marketing type of topics.
Yeah.
And they proposed it to me. Look, do you want to write a book? And I say, amazing, the saying, like plant a tree, write a book, have a child, this type of thing. So I was like, okay, I want to become an author, of course. And I have to say something, right? It was a rather painful process for me, because this was in a year that it was so hectic for me. I had a lot of complex clients going on at the time. I was traveling a lot to conferences too, and then I probably at that time, it was 2015, 16, something like that, I still didn't have as much of a as a good type of system or productivity organization type of system as I have right now. That is time that gives you, right, to identify the best way that you work, whatever. So it was like I pretty much wrote the book during nights, weekends, flights, this type of thing. And then again, I realized something, right? It was a long book, and then felt really weird to me to be writing about basic SEO stuff rather than a little bit more specialized or sophisticated type of tactics and manual type of articles like the ones that I tend to do, right? So maybe it was because of that it was hard for me. So I was so happy when I finished, and I was like, oh, author, that's it. And they have actually invited me to write many more books. But I have said, like, let's see in the future. But this is the thing. I probably next topics that I want to write about are not about intro to SEO or because it really feels very repetitive to me. I love this is what I have found, especially with SEO with my newsletter, right?
Yeah.
I love to write my newsletter because for me, it's also to be learning, to be keeping up with all that is happening in SEO. And I also provide other people a way to do it rather easily, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
It helps me too. So, and with the book, it felt really repetitive for me to be writing about something that was basic, right? And so hopefully, let's see if I can find like a good
balance,
balance there for a new book of an exciting new topic that people will find also new and myself too, right? To be incentivized to write about it.
Well, we're talking about your newsletter and it being an outlet for you to learn as well as educate people. One of the questions that really relates to that was from Abbas. Abbas was asking, like, where do you draw your inspiration from in terms of your approach and making decisions? Is there something that you follow or something that works for you in terms of having ideas for anything that would be considered innovative?
Not really. I think that this is the thing, right? I don't think, I want to do something innovative. I will do that. But what makes sense for me, right? What I like, what is demanded by the market, what makes sense, there's an opportunity, right? If somebody has already written 50 times about this exact same way, I won't do the same, right? I want to do something where there's an opportunity in the market. So this is the thing. Maybe it's because of my background of system engineer, but I am always thinking in terms of systems, of opportunities in a strategic way, right? So like what nobody else is doing or is doing in a different way, and I can adopt. And that I think that people with my profile will find, or the profile of my potential clients or audience will find useful, right? And this is where I go, right? The same with, for example, in a very natural way, I wasn't looking for a project to become an entrepreneur or nothing like that, but with Remoters, with my side project, that is a remote work hub, where we have a free job board for remote jobs, tools, resources, how-tos, etc. Right? It was all very natural because at that point, I was 2015. I started. I was already working remotely, and I had all the colleagues who were also working remotely. And then we realized, oh my God, there is no proper remote job website or resources websites that teach us and show us how to do this in an easy way for everybody, not non-fishy way, also for free completely, right? And this is how I started, right? But I didn't thought at the time. A lot of people come now and saying, "Oh my God, how come did you see were you able to see the remote work opportunity back in 2015?" It's like you are so like it felt really natural for me because there's the thing. I think that when you try to find the best way for you, independently of the restrictions that surround you, is when you not only you are the happiest, but also that where you find opportunities that if it fits for you, it will fit also very likely for other people, and then it will be a win-win type of a scenario and situation, right?
Well, it's really interesting, that, isn't it? When people speak of innovation and you think that, well, I didn't see it as innovative. This was something that I was probably already doing. And then I was trying to, some of the time, solve my own problems. And then over the course of time, you discover that you're not alone in that problem that you had. And it sounds a lot like, your journey has been a big contributor in, the remote business that you built, as well as the journey that you've gone on. And Hayden's got a really good question, and I kind of want to build upon it a little bit. So Hayden asks, how do you feel your sales experience has helped in your SEO career? And let's actually begin with Hayden's question directly. Do you think that what you learned in sales has been integral to your journey as an SEO professional?
Yeah, in the way how I approach SEO consulting to get good fitting clients, 100%. Clients that will fit the best and everything. This is very interesting, but when I was a salesperson, because I was working for this company, GBM, that is the representative for IBM in Central America, or it was at the time. Anyway, we got this sales course that was called the signature selling method. That was a selling method that was.
You still remember it? It must have been good
at the time, indeed, because they taught you to sell solutions, not products. Complex solutions, non-trivial solutions that costed a lot of money and that needed like technical validation. So it was pretty much like SEO. Like it is not everybody who wants like a network who will system or high maintenance type of servers with scalability, whatever. No, very specific company. So you needed to validate very well that there was a fit, that and you needed to build a solution around the products that you sold, make them functional in the first place. So this is how I got my approach of how to sell SEO. I know that not everybody who wants SEO is actually able to implement an SEO process or willing to wait for the time or a good fit for it less. So I approach the way I approach my SEO selling service, right, with clients, potential clients. It's like that. I validate if it is a good fit, it's going to be actually a solution for their problem. And instead of rather sell as a salesperson, right? So I really love that I got the chance to understand sales in that way earlier in my previous life, because then I just had to extrapolate that into SEO, in order to, find better clients, good clients.
And if you're, I'm here, and I just, from personal experience, having seen the difference before and after, maybe reading sales books, because I thought, well, you know what, I run Pearl Lemon, we're an agency. It probably makes sense that I learn a little bit more about sales and communication, since that's going to be, pivotal to the success of our business. What, in today's market, in this post kind of COVID-19 era, what would you consider to be the most important skills that someone going into the world of SEO should have, to include the SEO side, but also to include other skills that you must need to succeed in a career? Are there some key things that you think are important that you wish maybe you had learned earlier?
Yes, I think that what it is important, I think, is to know that in SEO, especially because it's changing all the time, right? Like, for example, what we are implementing right now, because of COVID, is very likely not what we had initially planned at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Right. Right. So I think that especially for people who are starting and they enter to this complex world where there is a technical side, a content side, a more promotional side of things, it might look very complex at the beginning. It's so spread out and so big right now, right at this point. It wasn't necessarily when I started, but now it has branched out so much, right? And the need to try to keep up and to learn about everything, right? Indeed. So if you try, for example, you can, like, for example, get crazy, like on one hand trying to develop automate things with an example Python as Hamlet, or be as good in outreach as the Rise at 7 people who do brilliant stuff, right? So there is so much going on in different levels and areas, right? So what it is important for someone who's just starting is that they have first curiosity to start digging through and finding out for themselves and testing things for themselves, and then to realize that they don't need to know or to be the best about everything, because right now it's pretty much impossible, right? But what they actually need is to, on one hand, know how everything works and everything fits together, and it fits like a puzzle, right? To make it work and to move the needle of traffic and ROI, marketing from a marketing perspective and business perspective of sites, because at the end of the day, this is what people hire SEOs for. This is the first thing. And then on the other hand, so instead of being like, oh my God, I need to learn about all of this and be the best of all of this, is rather impossible, right? So prioritize, go little by little, test it out yourself on your own website. That is the best way to learn, to validate, to check, because there's always so much information going on, the latest update, this works, whatever. Just an example, right? And I can see this with a junior person who has been just started to collaborate with me from a client side, right?
Yeah.
And he was all excited talking to me right now about web stories, and I was like, yes, that's great, but before like even trying to implement anything regarding web stories, let's just publish and optimize this very basic fundamental type of pages. So this is the thing, when people are starting out, they don't know how to prioritize, and everything looks important, and their mind can kind of blow if they do this, right? So know how to prioritize, learn the fundamentals, learn how SEO fits as a puzzle within marketing, and then it will better fit to so you can see what really connects better to your own skills, where it is better for you to focus on and to specialize on. Maybe it's in the technical side, maybe it's in the content side, maybe it's in the link building side. Like there's room for everything, and that's the beauty of it. And I think that you need to do this little by little, by first digging out, being very proactive, very curious, understanding that there's not only a single path for everything. That's not true, and there's so much opportunity here for everybody to find out or to identify an opportunity to bring value, and at the end of the day, without missing out something critical. That is not about doing flashy things or whatever. No, it's about bringing value to clients to make their marketing goals to be achieved, and that's it, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think that's such fantastic advice. And this, you know, you've actually, without necessarily realizing, Aleyda, you've answered Zach's question as well. Zach asked, how do you get experience when you don't have experience? And he talks about his catch-22 situation. And, you know, Zach, I just want to kind of, you know, reiterate what Aleyda has said, which is fantastic advice, that, you know, focus on fundamentals. And she said something that is really, really important. You can experiment on your own websites all by yourself, okay? That is something that you can do without needing an employer, and really is, to be honest with you, quite powerful. Literally 3 days ago, I was pitched by a guy who said, look, I'm struggling for employment. I tried to get a job at an SEO agency in Birmingham. They wouldn't give me any. So I spent 4 months trying to outrank them for the keyword SEO agency Birmingham on my own website. I didn't get there, to be honest with you. I got to the bottom of page 1 and I was just doing it. And my God, it was so impressive to hear that someone took that approach, and that he's just onboarded today. And do you wanna,
What I would recommend, like, go and go through all of the Semrush Academy content, because there's amazing content right there to learn SEO from scratch, and then start building your website with that in mind. Then get even like a simple HTML course, even just to understand the building blocks of it. Then you can even build it with WordPress if you want, whatever. But I think start doing it for yourself, about something that you are passionate about, something that you can even in the future monetize. When I started to like the remote work website, it was not because I was going to make money out of it, because I actually really believe in it and the value that it could bring to people in lives, right? And opportunities. So I will say, do that, because on one hand, then you might realize that you're really great building websites and might want to focus much more in web development, or that you are a great copywriter, and then you will show that website as a proof that you know how to write well, or that you're a great SEO and you are doing SEO with your own website, and you will show that as a proof that give me my first SEO job opportunity, because take a look, I am proactive. So building out your own website will already set you apart, I will say, than like half of the other people who are applying without one, because it shows your commitment, it shows what you already learned, even as someone who has been unemployed, right? So I will say, do that. I think that can bring you a lot of value and open your opportunities for so many things.
Zach, you've heard it from, you know, a lady that has hired many people, and I think that I couldn't second that more. Now we are coming into almost the last 10 to 12 minutes of the webinar, so I've got to be really mindful of the questions that the audience are asking versus the questions I want to ask. I'm going to ask you politely, Aleyda, to give slightly shorter answers so I can ask you more questions.
Okay, so, you know, that is very difficult for me. As a Latin American woman.
I know. I knew it'd be a challenge.
Yes, no.
So let's go through them. So Nitin asked a good question. You do a lot, Aleyda. talk, and you said that in 2015 16, you kind of, your planning and your systems changed. Can you talk a little bit through your strategy for getting things done?
Well, I started to prioritize much more on what I understood that I enjoy more and brought me the more value, right? And I started to, for example, I have a couple of people helping me to do SEO audits, analysis with clients, etc. So I started to delegate a little bit more on one hand, and still do what I enjoy and do in the day-to-day handle the clients, right? So understanding which were the opportunities and those tasks where I actually didn't had to be involved all the time. So an example right now, something that consumes my times right now, but I haven't yet delegated, but I might in the future, is the edition of my own Crawling Mondays videos. A lot of people don't realize, but I actually edit them and do the whole thing myself. I record them, I edit them, whatever. Why do I do this? Because I actually wanted to learn. I feel like a little bit like a movie director, right? So it's something that I like, that I wanted to learn. So I tested myself, put myself into that. And I think that I still have room of improvement to edit my own videos. For sure. When I identify that, well, I already reached the point that I wanted, or it's definitely taking too much time from me, whatever, then I will delegate that, or will look, or will hire someone who helped me with that. With the newsletter, a lot of people ask me, oh, do you do the newsletter yourself, or do you build your decks yourself? The answer is yes, because I enjoy the process. This is the first thing, I need to enjoy it. That it allows me to keep learning and testing things out. If I didn't, this was something that I will delegate, for example. So for example, I have someone to do my invoices, type of thing that I delegate, things that you don't enjoy and that you are not interested to learn about, and think that the things that you identify that one compound well in time, delegate, right? So identifying those is
really powerful. It's really powerful. So Nitin, delegation is huge. Delegation of tasks you don't want to do. Aleyda clearly prioritizes things that she does want to do. She's clearly, years into her experience, but is still learning and treating it like she's new, which absolutely sounds massive. And probably as a consequence of that, you find new discoveries and new breakthroughs and build even more effective systems. So Aleyda, what would you, if there, I like this question. This is from David. David says, if there was no internet or SEO, what do you think you'd be doing?
I know that answer. You know what I will be doing? I will be a travel advisor in a travel agency, because these days, think about it, 40 years ago, there was no internet. What was a very hot job at the time, because no internet, whatever. You work at a travel agency. Those were like actual jobs, and I would have loved to do that, to advise clients and to build, this is something that I do for myself too. Whenever I go to a new location, a new destination, when we are able to travel, right? I always take the opportunity to stay during the weekend or an extra day before and after to go and explore. Is something, some of the things that I enjoy the most when traveling. So I always do this type of tours, routes, whatever. I enjoy it a lot. I could, again, delegate it to a VA, whatever, but I actually enjoy choosing the nice hotel where I will
destinations, the hotels.
And I can see myself doing that in another life, in a parallel reality without internet.
So there you have it. That is, David, what Aleyda would be doing. Kate's got, rather, Kate has forwarded us a good question from Hayden. So this is a really, how, as we know, SEO is unregulated, let's say. How is it that how can someone as a practitioner ultimately charge more and stand out in the market? One of the common questions that we'll get, for example, on a call is, Deepak, what makes you guys different? And the very common question, right? What's your advice to Hayden about how we can manage it?
Know your unique selling proposition. What is something that you can provide or that makes you unique that other SEOs cannot or have a harder time doing so? And so for example, and this is why it's so important to think well about the type of path that you want to take. I knew very early on, for example, that there were certain things I wanted to keep being able remote. I wanted to work remote. I did know that I didn't enjoy managing companies or doing the business side of things, but I did enjoy doing SEO. So I found a good way to build a small consultancy that would allow me to keep doing what I love, SEO, and growing in another way that is in the complexity of projects that I work on and the type of companies that I work on, instead of volume, right? And then, of course, that makes, and then you need to realize what is the characteristics that make you stand out as that, right? And when the client comes, they know that they will be working with me, who has certain years of experience in these very specific scenarios, rather than, for example, a big agency with a big name, yes, but rather they will be taken care of by an account manager who actually doesn't know SEO, or they will need to reach out to an SEO who is junior or might not have necessarily this type of experience, right? So this is very important to know which are the type of clients that you do need and one based on what you can provide. So, for example, I wouldn't be necessarily a good fit for small company and SMB, but I am a great fit for companies, and most of my clients, they do have their own in-house SEO teams, even marketing teams, and what they look when they hire me is an additional validation support for specific projects, specific scenarios, specific challenges for which they need additional strategical type of SEO approach with a lot of experience in those scenarios. Right.
Absolutely. So Hayden, I think that's fantastic advice. As Aleyda has outlined, being mindful of what you're trying to achieve and the kind of, in Aleyda's example, she's given the kind of business or practitioner that you want to be, then will really, really dictate how you can specialize and therefore what makes you unique. And, if you're at the early stages of your career, of course, then, and you can't perhaps trade, for example, on Aleyda's background, Aleyda's experience, which for many of us, or for many of you who are starting out, of course, it's not entirely the same thing, but that's also opportunity to build experience, to build expertise, to figure out what you like. So maybe you do take some of the jobs that you're not 100% sure upon because you're still at a stage where you're developing your expertise. And I think that, you take all of these paths.
Yeah, I want also to say something, right? Yeah, indeed, like figuring out and knowing what will set you apart from many other freelancers, etc. Knowing your unique selling proposition, that is key here. And then there is another very important thing, right? You need to understand as a freelancer, or as an agency, or as a business, right, that a good chunk of your time will go into things that are not necessarily SEO. So you need to be comfortable selling. You need to be comfortable supporting clients, speaking, doing invoices, doing proposals, doing contracts, doing this, like all of this different stuff that at some point, many of them you will be able to delegate. But it's important that you realize that you need to have this into consideration. That I have to say, there are fantastic SEOs, fantastic specialists out there they could very well build their own agency and be amazing independent consultants, but they don't do it. But they are not doing it because they realize that it's something that they wouldn't enjoy, right? They prefer to be employees. That's completely fine, right? We are all different. And so what it is important is that you identify what you want and the right mix and balance for it. And there's so many different ways to achieve it, right? So in my case, I wanted to be independent, and I became independent when I felt actually that I was in good capacity to also bring business to myself, while enjoying the flexibility of working for myself. So all of everything happening as I wanted, right? So, but it's important to get to that point when you can validate that and verify that, and also realize that if you want to become a freelance, you need to be more than willing and be happy by doing the non-SEO part of it too.
Absolutely. And I think that, recognizing that there is, to some degrees, even if you're an individual or whether an agency, there's some aspects, building contracts, sending invoices, having an accountant, like these are, as Aleyda talks about, with learning the fundamentals of HTML to understand the building blocks of how a page is built, and therefore what you're actually linking to. If you're going to start on a journey, whether it is freelancer or an agency owner, it will pay dividends to learn a little bit about the invoicing process, about how to build an SEO proposal, and how to, for example, study with me, as you asked, communicate, because part of your role, you will not get away from sales, because you're going to be communicating ultimately your value at some level. So little bits of those skills are going to become important. Aleyda, we've got the last minute that we're coming into. I want to ask you a final question as we wrap up this webinar. I would love if you could answer for us, looking back at your career today, what is the kind of number one piece of advice that you have for someone right now in today's market, you know, post-COVID, who's really looking to make a name for themselves in the SEO world, as you've done? What would be your advice to that person if they were kind of starting on their journey, if they've already got a little bit of experience? What would you say to that person?
I will say that they should find that particular spot, right? Like what they enjoy doing the most in SEO, because SEO is very broad at this point, and what the market is looking for, and that will be a sweet spot they can focus on. Because when you are doing something that you love and you're really passionate about, you'll become simply the best, right? And you will learn and you will excel and you will want to share about it and only think about it and develop much more about it, right? So it will become very natural for you to be sharing and in a blog post or speaking about it, and at some point like getting a name for yourself, things like that, and getting much better jobs because of the great job that you're doing. So it will be a consequence, a nice consequence. What it is important, I think, is that you identify very well what really connects to what you really want, and what you have also the capacity. You need to have the skills, of course, to get there. So it is important that you identify that, and once that you identify it, you go for it. And I think that everything else is pretty natural, right? This is the beauty of the SEO world, right? That we have Twitter, we have a lot of blogs that if you show that you know, if you share useful, insightful stuff, they will be the first one willing, saying like, publish on our website, or I'll invite you on ones that you, for example. I think that definitely there's I think that the barrier is very low at this point, because you can even, it's much more common than before, do a webinar like this, or with YouTube yourself, and show with a how-to what you
demonstrate your knowledge,
right?
demonstrate your knowledge.
Indeed, and then people will realize, oh, this person know how also to communicate, etc. So the jobs opportunities can come, speaking opportunities, blog post opportunities, things like that. So you can see how it's all like connected. And it's very natural. It should be very natural.
Guys, spoken like a true systems engineer, I might add. So Aleyda, listen, it's been really, I feel really fortunate to have had the opportunity to hear more about your history and to understand the journey. And everybody who's been listening, thank you for taking the time to ask questions, to engage with us, to hear more about everything and anything that relates to Aleyda's story, both SEO and non-SEO. And we'll catch you. I think Kate's already left a link to the next webinar. But Aleyda, thank you so much. Guys, go ahead, of course, Google her, hire her if you haven't already, and make the project as complex as possible, because that's the kind of stuff that's going to get you through the door with Aleyda. If it's too simple, she's probably not going to do it. Just so you know, I'll put that out there, and catch you on the next webinar. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.